Hello, my 4K friends. I am glad to be seeing you, at least through a computer for today. If you can't tell already, I'm in my office at school. Even have my boom whackers here with me. I'm sorry I didn't get to see you all after I got back from my trip with my family and that we've had to be at home in this time, but I hope you've had fun learning at home with your friends and your families, at least your friends virtually. So today I'm here to share with you a little bit about my trip. I know that Mrs. Schultz always does a passport unit at the end of her 4K year, and it's pretty exciting to visit all the different countries and learn about different people and cultures. And that's what hopefully I'll be able to share with you today. So, as most of you know, my husband is from Kenya and he grew up there his whole life, went to school, and then moved here to the States for college. So, we went back to Kenya this year to finally visit his family, which most of us in our family had never been. And on our way there, we stopped in Qatar and spent a few days there. So, I'd like to share with you a bit about both of those countries. So, I'm going to be moving on my screen to a few different areas so that we can see pictures and everything. So the first thing I'm going to talk to you about is Qatar. So when we went to Kenya, we had to fly from Chicago to Qatar and then from Qatar to Kenya since it's so far away to get to Kenya. It took us 12 hours on an airplane to get to Qatar. We flew over Europe and then down through the Middle East. And if you're at home, maybe your parents can even show you after this presentation a map of the whole world. And I guess I have one over here as well. So you can see just how far Qatar and Kenya are from where we live in the US. So Qatar is part of the Middle East, and you can see here it's a pretty small country right on the coast of the Arabian Gulf. It's beautiful desert country, and you can see in these smaller photos over here the capital city of Doha. So Doha is really only the only city, in Qatar. It's right on the coast there of the Arabian Gulf, and you can see there's lots of really beautiful big skyscrapers and where people live and work. And then beyond Doha is really just desert, and most of Qatar makes money through oil. So it's an interesting place to be since there's just like one city. Qatar was beautiful, and I wish honestly we could have spent more time there. So I'm going to show you some more photos of our time in Qatar, and let me just get back to the bigger page here. Perfect. So, well, on our way there, the first thing that we learned and experienced was on Qatar Airways, and you can see Maya and Malika were sitting next to me on the plane, and on the airplane. It shows you where you are as you're flying, and you can see here that the writing that we're reading is a different language. It's not even written in the same alphabet that we would use for English. So people in Qatar speak Arabic, and this is how that language looks when it's written. And so when we're on our airplane, all of the things that the pilots or the flight attendants were telling us, they would say those first in Arabic, and then they would say them in English, because there was many people on the plane who maybe only spoke Arabic or spoke both. So this was kind of interesting, and I took a picture of it because I figured most of us hadn't ever seen or heard Arabic written or spoken. When we got to Qatar, we were able to see a little bit on our first day, and then we had the next day and another half of a day as well to spend some time there. And luckily, one of Mr. O's friends from Kenya actually lives in Qatar, so he was able to show us around and help us see some of the main attractions. We were almost 9 hours, I think 9 hours ahead in Qatar. So when it's midnight here and you're sleeping in Qatar, it's already morning. It's already 9 a.m. and people are having breakfast. So it took a few days for us to get adjusted to the time change. Qatar is being worked on constantly. You can see construction here on this top picture, and that was around the clock. When we would be sleeping, even people would be up working hard on making new buildings or renovating old buildings. And here's an example of some of the buildings that we got to see that were really beautiful. This is a place called the Pearl. And in Qatar, many people from other countries live in this area, and they have boats. There's areas to walk around right on the coast. It's very hot. When we were in Qatar, it's technically their winter time there, although there's no snow or anything like that that we would think is winter. And it was about 80 degrees. Now in the summer, and Qatar usually has about 6 months of summer weather. It's typically, very hot, over 100 degrees, and people really don't go outside during the day. So it was beautiful for us. It felt like summer for us, but it was really their winter. And this is one of the areas that we got to see and visit, where they keep a lot of the yachts and boats that you can spend time on the water. And at the end, I'll even show you a traditional Qatari boat called a dhow, DHOW. There's palm trees everywhere. We did even get to visit a McDonald's in Qatar. And as you can see, they have the writing in English here and then also in Arabic. It's mostly the same stuff that we have at McDonald's here, with a few exceptions. They have some like different fries and like chicken on the bone, like drumsticks or wings, versus like we have just chicken nuggets. In Qatar, there are many different people from different countries who live there, which was a really exciting thing, because that meant that there was a lot of different foods and different people to see and meet. We got to eat at an Afghani restaurant, and it was delicious. So this is a picture of some of the food we ate there. If you've ever had like Greek food, the tzatziki sauce that comes with Greek food is similar to what this was on this white plate in the corner. It was like kind of a cucumber yogurt sauce, and they ate that with this soup, which was very spicy, and this rice here, and there was I think there was shrimp on here, and it helped kind of cool it down. But it was delicious food, and food that it's kind of hard to find some of these different foods here in the U.S. So we were excited to try some new foods. In Qatar, one of our main hobbies is falconry, which was really cool. Now, falcons are these birds here that you can see in the photo. And these birds can be super expensive. So even when we were walking around in Qatar, you could go in and see some of the different places. The owners told us that some of these birds would be thousands of dollars to buy and train. So they're really beautiful, but really expensive. So we did not buy any of these birds. It was really, really cool to see some of those, different pastimes that we wouldn't see here. You can see here, and I'll have an example later, of the downtown of the old Qatar. This is like the original place of Doha, and then they built all the big, skyscrapers and everything later, but this is the original one. Now, we visited Qatar on our longest day was a Friday. And so Qatar is an Islamic nation. So their holy day, the day when they would go to church, go to the mosque, is on a Friday. So you can even see here, there's not many people on the streets at the time that we were walking around, because everybody during that midday time is going to go to prayer. And there's actually an example of what you hear when there's a call to prayer in Qatar. And you can hear through loudspeakers all of the imams, like our pastors, calling people to midday prayer, which was a new experience for me and my family, because you don't typically hear that here in the U.S. We also got to see a market called a souk, and an outdoor traditional market. So there's all these different like little walkways through the original city, and you walk through and you can buy everything. You can see everything. There's tons of people out. You can see this is later in the evening. These gentlemen here are all participating in a live auction. And you can see just even by the way people are dressed according to, where they're from. And so different style of shirt or different head covering might mean that you're from a different country. So it's really cool to see all different people together in one spot from all over the world. We have here an example of, in the souk, there's a restroom that you could use, a bathroom. And here you can see you don't wear your shoes, your outside shoes, into the bathroom. You leave them outside the door. And then you go in and you're given a pair of like flip-flops to put on, and then you can use the bathroom and come out, so that you don't bring your dirty shoes into the restroom there. So it's something new and different. Now you can see down here, this is what Qatar looks like at night, all lit up. This was from our boat ride on the dhow boat. And I can show you, here's the kids on the inside of that boat. There's Micah and Miles and Maya and Mr. O. And then these are our friends over here on the right-hand side. So this is what the inside of the boat looked like. And they're all lit up when you're riding on it. And you can go onto the Gulf. It's it was beautiful to see. So Qatar is lit up kind of like if you have ever seen photos of the country of Dubai or the city of Dubai, you would see that. Now, before I move on, I want to show you just, I hope this works, the video of the call to prayer. So let me see here. So if you can listen carefully, you can hear the call to prayer. All right, so I think it worked, and you kind of got a little bit of a taste of what it might look like or be like to walk through Qatar at the nighttime. I have also even given Mrs. Schultz some separate photo rolls where you'll be able to see more pictures. There's a video for Qatar, and it'll show you a larger view of what we saw there, and then also for Kenya. So once we were done with our time in Qatar, we flew to Kenya, which is another 6-hour flight to get from Qatar, which I've circled here on the map, to Kenya in Africa. And so you kind of fly around the peninsula here and then down over Africa to get to Kenya. And while we were in Kenya, we went to a bunch of different places. My family is from Nakuru, which is this circle here, and that is 4 hours from the capital city of Nairobi. Nairobi is a really big city, like New York City or Chicago, huge. Tons of people, traffic, and cars. And Nakuru is big, about 1 million people, but not as busy as Nairobi is. We also visited Kisii, which is like, if we were here, we'd be saying we're going up north, to the woods or going camping or something. Kisii is kind of like that. People go there, and it's hill country, and it's beautiful. That's where Mr. O's grandma lives. And we also took an airplane from Nairobi and flew to the city of Mombasa, which is on the coast of Kenya. And that's really hot and humid there. And there's beautiful, warm Indian Ocean waters. So we'll show you a few pictures from each of those so you can see what Kenya looks like. So when we flew into Kenya, I started to take pictures of stuff that was maybe different than what we have here in the States. And I gave to Mrs. Schultz also a few of those other videos, so you can look at all the photos. The ones that I'll show you here on the presentation are just like the highlights. So we stayed with George's mom, so the kid's grandma. And her name is Grandma Maggie, is what we call her, Margaret. And one of the interesting things in her house is this is like the shower room. So the shower wasn't just a piece of the bathroom. It was an entire room. And it might look a little bit different from our shower. As you can see up here on the top, it's got this like big shower head. There's no bathtub right here. And then this like pipe coming out of the wall. So the water in many of the houses in Kenya isn't heated. It isn't piped coming into the house through like city pipes. It comes through large tanks outside, and then that goes into your house. And then there's this little contraption here on the top that heats the water. That's electric, and it heats the water. And then there's a separate switch to turn that on, and then the water will be hot for your shower. If you're going to take a bath, we usually just got a big basin, a big tub, and then we boiled water and put it in the tub, and you could take a bath there or just rinse yourself off. So that's a little bit different than what we might be used to here in the States. One of the best things to eat for breakfast that I had never had until I went to Kenya was this, cooked bananas. So these are cooked green bananas, and green bananas, when you cook them, taste like a potato. So you kind of cook them with tomatoes. I think we had some sausage there, and it makes this little sauce. And most Kenyans use a spice blend called Royco, and it's just a spice blend that you can get there. I have never found it here in the States, even if you go to like an ethnic grocery store. I haven't seen it here. So I'm not exactly sure what's in it, but it flavors much of their food. Use it on the bananas. This is delicious. For breakfast in Kenya, you often have, and I kind of got a picture of the mug here. You have every day, at least once, chai. Now, chai in the States is something that maybe your parents get from Starbucks, and they might get it warm, and it's kind of like spiced with like cinnamon. You could get it cold, I guess. In Kenya, it's similar to that, and chai is actually the Swahili word for tea. So if you order a chai tea latte at Starbucks, you're actually saying tea latte. Chai is much sweeter, and you can even make it out of tea leaves. Sometimes they do, but we often drink tea made out of sorghum grains. So you would boil it with the sorghum grains and then strain it and drink it with your tea in the morning. We would eat breakfast maybe at like 10 or 11. So when you would wake up, you would go and do your work first, like do your dishes, do laundry. All laundry is done by hand, even in places where where in a big city, people don't have a washer or a drying machine. So they wash everything by hand. You got to scrub it, and then you hang it on a line to dry. After that, you can come in and eat your breakfast. Here, I just have a photo of my family, some of us here. So next to me is my mother-in-law. And then on my other side here is her sister, our aunt. And so this is a picture of us. We were at a lake here with the kids, just, seeing the countryside when we were there. Many of the homes in Kenya, you can see the photo here in the middle. This is a picture of where we stayed. This is Grandma Maggie's house, and you can see it looks a little bit different than our homes that we have here. Most of the homes are made out of these cinder blocks. There's no heating or air conditioning systems really in them. They have these little cutouts that are ventilation for the home. And then people open up their windows for most of the day here. You can see the bars are there, but you open the inside windows. This big door opens up to have like an open air veranda. On the top, there's gutters all along the top of each of these homes. And this is what people use to collect all the rainwater that goes into the giant cisterns to give water to the house. So there's a rainy season and a dry season in Kenya. And you want to collect water during the rainy season. So when it's dry, you still have water to use. On the outsides of many of the homes and compounds in Kenya, so like you can't see your neighbor when you're living in Kenya. There's typically like an 8-foot wall. And on the top of the wall is something like this. This one has razor wire. Some people put broken glass and set it in cement for security. But all of the houses and compounds are surrounded by these walls with security things on top so that people or animals aren't going to climb over your wall and come into your home. So you don't go outside and like wave to your neighbor across the street. You have to go through a gate to get your car out, to walk in or out if you want to see anybody. Otherwise, you're just in your own compound by yourself. We did get to see lots of animals in Kenya, some out in the open. I hope you can kind of see this one. There's more in the videos I sent, but these are zebras right on the side of the road as we're driving through from Nairobi to Nakuru on that 4-hour ride. Zebras all over, just on the road. And you'll also notice that Kenya is like super green. So I thought when I would go to Kenya that it would be like the Lion King, kind of like savanna everywhere. And there are some places like that in Masai Mara mainly. But the rest of Kenya is very green. It looks really similar to Wisconsin in the spring, honestly, with tons of hills, huge hills, bigger than we have here, more like Kentucky or Tennessee almost, and just beautiful green spaces with lots of animals. And here you can see there's even a little monkey climbing on one of the walls around the compounds. And these monkeys just go around everywhere. So they will come very close to you, some of them, because they're used to people, and then they'll climb back up in the trees as well. Now, we took an airplane, a small airplane, to the coastal city of Mombasa. And so here we are on Mombasa. It's actually an island right off the coast of Kenya. And so you take a ferry boat to get there, or one side has a large bridge, and you can see the beautiful Indian Ocean here. Now, one of the local guys who we brought coconuts from did tell us that a person here, the week before we got there, had fallen into the ocean. There's some cliffs over here, and was swimming around, and a shark ate him. So there's sharks in these waters. We did not see any sharks, but large boats will come through here to deliver shipping containers to the city, and the sharks will follow the boats out and eat any of the trash or garbage that's kind of left behind from them. So that was an interesting thing. We got to eat and experience some fresh coconuts. While we were on the coast, they cut them down, and you drink the coconut water from the middle of the coconut, and then they use a knife to kind of chop up the inside, and you scoop it out, and it tastes kind of like coconut ice cream. So it's a delicious thing to try. Here you can see just an example of one of those large shipping boats that come into the port there. We're still in Mombasa here, and you can just see an example of, looks kind of like, like any place you might be here if you're in a warmer beach area. There's sand here on the side. They've got a road and then some different types of buildings, a regular apartment building. And then you have smaller kiosk, little stores where you might go to a restaurant, a pub, all along the road. They might have fruits or vegetables or, animals to buy, cows, goats, chickens, all right here. In Mombasa, we visited also an animal park, and I'll show you a few of the animals. Here's a giant tortoise that we got to see, and he was over 100 years old. And you can see just how big he is. He's almost, as tall as Malika here. And this is our friend Patrick. He drove us around for our trip with our family as well. Some of the other animals we got to see, giraffes, and we got to feed the giraffes here. So giraffes, these are called twigas in Swahili. Giraffe is twiga. And there's a bunch of them. This is only I think one group that was off in the distance there. There's also antelope with the long horns and hippos. We got to see these being fed. These were huge up close. I'd never seen one except at the zoo in Milwaukee. So to see one up close was really impressive. And we also got to see these crocodiles. So many crocodiles. This is the biggest one. It might be hard to tell from this picture, but this guy was at least 20 feet long. And then in the waters, I'm not going to show the video here, but you can kind of see the picture here. There's at least 40 or 50 crocodiles in here, and they put little chickens out here to feed the crocodiles. And you can kind of see there, they'll kind of jump up and fight over the chickens. All right. So while we were in Mombasa, we had a house that we stayed at. And here's an example of one of the bedrooms that we stayed in. You can see on the bed, there's mosquito netting because there's a lot of mosquitoes that could transmit malaria, which is a disease that could make you very sick. So we slept with this. And then we also had to take medicine every day to protect ourselves from malaria while we were there. Another view of the house, you can see Mombasa is very tropical, very, very green, but super, super tropical compared to the other areas where we were staying. And then we also got to visit the Indian Ocean and swim in the ocean while we were there. So here's a photo of us, our first time in the ocean. I wish I had taken a picture of the octopus that a fisherman had caught. Somebody just went out kind of snorkeling and caught an octopus and some lobster, and we're trying to sell them on the beach. But I didn't have my phone with me at that time. So you can see the kids playing in the ocean, people sitting along the shore. It was beautiful and warm. I'm only used to really the Pacific Ocean, which is cold. And this was just like bath water. It was beautiful. We did even have a pool at our house in Mombasa. You can see more tropical plants here. There was a banana tree back here where you could go and pick bananas. Bananas are grown all over Kenya. Lots of bananas, lots of avocados that you can just pick right off a tree in your yard and eat. So it was awesome to have that pool there. Then we traveled to Kisi, which is where Grandma lived. And in Kisi, it's more of the farmland, really hilly. And one of the main things that people grow in Kisi is tea. So our family grows tea, and this is what it looks like when it's growing. There's some people tiny in the background that are picking the tea. It's all picked by hand. There's not really, even for the large commercial farms, they just hire a lot of people to pick by hand. There's not like a machine or anything that they can use. And then they also grow bananas. Kisi are famous for bananas, and you can see in here, kind of on the side, this is a banana grove. So if you walk in here, there's tons of bananas, and the bananas in Kenya are even sweeter than the bananas we have here in the States. So a few other things on the farm, they have chickens. And this is my niece, Nicole. And so she's caught one of the chickens. We did actually eat this chicken for dinner that night. So he was butchered on the farm, and then we ate him. Many Kenyans don't eat chicken often, so it's kind of a special treat that we had the chicken. They typically will eat goat for most of their meals if they're going to have meat. Lots of goat, then chicken, and then rarely beef. And you don't go to the store to buy like ground meat like we might, you would either go to a butcher, a special butcher, and get it. And you would always get it with the bone. You wouldn't get like a package of ground meat, or you would butcher your own. You can see Mr. O here, he has a piece of sugar cane. So sugar cane grows there, and you can bite the edge with your teeth, peel it off, and then suck out the sugar juice that's inside. So the kids got to experience sugar cane. And in the back, you can see some of the different pens. This is where the animals live at Grandma's house. There's, let's see, cows, sheep, goats, chickens. And then this is an example of what the tea farm would look like for a commercial tea farm. All the different little houses where all the workers work or live, and then they go and pick the tea during the day. Lastly, I know I kind of flew through this. This is an example of the locusts that we saw in Kenya. So you may have seen or heard about the locusts being there, and here they are, millions of them flying all over the air. And I didn't even go stand out from under the eaves, because they will poop on you, these bugs. So Mr. O was standing out here, and there's so many that if they go to the bathroom, they'll land on you here. And so there's tons of locusts. They're looking for a place to land and eat. So thankfully they did not land anywhere where we were. They were basically flying over, but there's so many that you could see them super, super far. So this is a really, really quick view of some of the things we experienced in Kenya and Qatar. I'd encourage you to look at the videos that I also shared with Mrs. Schultz, so that you can see some more photos of what it's like in Kenya and Qatar. And if you have any questions, or you'd like to ask me something, please feel free to send me an email or send one to Mrs. Schultz, and she can pass it on to me. I hope you guys have had a great time learning about all the different countries and experiencing some different cultures. And I hope I get to see you guys next year when we're back at school. Have a great day.